Thank you, Governor. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Governor, if you sit down, everybody else will. Thank you so much. I'm coming back to Indiana. Flattery will get you everywhere, Mitch. I've been out of public life for a year and a half. I haven't heard so many exaggerated nice things about me since I was governor, where, of course, when you're governor, everybody comes and tells you how wonderful you are. Now, you'll have 4 more years and 4 months to be governor. On January... The joyous part of service is the chance to serve. It's interesting afterwards. At noon on January 2nd, 2007, I was governor at 11:59, 59 seconds. Governor Christ put his hand on the Bible and was sworn in, and he was the main guy. I took a car back to the airport, and when I arrived in Miami, I had a cab to my house. And on my next trip, I didn't have a state plane. There was no Florida Department of Law Enforcement. It was actually a joyous, wonderful experience. But I don't get all the, gosh, you're the greatest guy in the world, Governor, kind of stuff anymore. And so it's nice to be back to hear that once, just for a little bit. Now, I don't do many political speeches. It's not that I'm not a committed Republican. By genetics and by social upbringing and by conviction, I guess I am, whether I like it or not. Imagine it being a Democrat and being a Bush. It would be traumatic beyond belief. But I'm a committed Republican, but for a while I've decided to let others be on the stage. I can't stand the press coverage. I hate the talking heads on television, so I don't want to participate in that side of politics. And so what I've done really is get to pick the people I like to support, to pick the men and women that I admire because of their integrity, because of their commitment to principle, because of this formula that I think is so important for our country now, which is to have conservative, principle-centered leaders that have the courage of their convictions and say what they're going to do in a campaign and then do what they said they were going to do. Now, I know that sounds like a novel idea. It's a novel idea in 2008, I admit that to have people that have the true courage of their convictions to say what they want to do, even though it might offend somebody, even though someone might not agree with it, and then use every ounce of energy to do what they said they were going to do. That closing the loop is what we need in America today, and that's why I'm here, because Mitch Daniels is the poster child of doing just that, and you should be very, very proud of him. So, since I've been a little rusty on the political circuit, I called my chief political advisor, Barbara Bush. She, by the way, is the chief political advisor of all male Bushes. She runs the show, as most of you know. In fact, my mom is in the Mayo Clinic right now. Typical Barbara Bush. She has 2 rusty knees, and instead of waiting for, get one done and then go get another one done at the age of 83, she said, heck no, I'm going to do both of them at the same time. So she now has 2, high-tech knees and she's sitting in a hospital. But before she went, I was with her last Friday. She spoke at our Education Reform Conference in Orlando, and I said, Mom, I'm going to go campaign with Mitch Daniels, and I'm going to the Indiana Republican Party annual dinner. What should I speak about? And my mom said, speak about 20 minutes, and that's what I intend to do. So, this election, apart from the important re-election of Mitch Daniels, this is an election that could be a tipping point for our country. This could be an election where Americans, maybe without a big debate, decide that we want more government, more taxes, more regulation to deal with the anxiety of change that is taking place in our lives. The world is moving at warp speed. We have new competitors now in places we can barely pronounce. New economic tigers that are emerging in a very global, very interconnected world. Technology is changing the world, globalization is changing the world, and people are a little scared. And people have a sense of anxiety about this, and it's a natural thing to default to the warm bosom of government, if you will, to the empty promise of more government to try to solve problems. And particularly if you put it in in a package that is quite eloquent. Senator Obama is perhaps the most eloquent man in the political world today, and he wraps it around this concept of change. People naturally are migrating towards this idea of bigger and bigger government. But the net result would be, if this election turns as it could, if we don't do our part, we will have an ever-expanding government, we'll have more lawsuits, more regulation, and without a big debate, it is possible that the character of our country will change. The United States could possibly begin to look more like France than the United States of America. And I don't want to skip, not that France is not a nice place, it's a wonderful place, but that's not America. America is based on limited government, on rewards for individual achievement, on risk-taking, on people taking care of themselves, just as you've experienced here in Indiana with the tornadoes and with the floods. This idea of rugged individualism is not a foreign concept in the United States. It is something that has created the greatest amount of prosperity to the greatest number of people ever in the history of mankind. And at a time when we need to reinforce these values and beliefs, it seems that we've kind of lost our confidence. And I'm here to tell you that conservative principles matter. And conservative principles implemented the right way will create more prosperity and allow us to continue to be the greatest country on the face of this earth. So my hope is that Republican candidates here in Indiana and in Florida and across the country won't be defensive about our winning philosophy. It is a winning philosophy. We should advocate limited government everywhere we can. We should advocate cutting taxes and cutting regulation. We should not be ashamed of the fact that when people work hard and play by the rules, that they should be rewarded and be able to make choices for themselves and their families rather than expect government to be the solution. Conservatives need to have a zeal for reform because there's so many things right now in terms of vital services for our country, most particularly, in my opinion, education, where we need to have a zeal for reform to maintain our competitive posture. The United States, conservatives need to advocate a strong America in the rest of the world. It is not the time to pull back. It is the time to be aggressively pursuing American interests around the world. And finally, conservatives need to talk in a way that draws people towards our cause as it relates to the questions that are bigger than politics, the questions of values, the questions of strong families, the American values that undergird all of this. Politics is important, but values matter a tremendous amount. And we should not be ashamed of advocating traditional American values to advance in the 21st century. That philosophy is a winning philosophy, and I'm here to tell you, in a purple state like Florida, in case you noticed, it was fairly close in the 2000 election, pretty close in the 2004 election, that in a state that has more Democrats than Republicans, you're looking at a guy that I have a few tire marks and bruises on my forehead for advocating these things, but there were people that were drawn towards our cause because as a candidate and as governor, I tried as best I could with my limitations to advocate just that. And I know that Mitch Daniels is doing exactly the same thing in Indiana, and people are responding to it. I wish we could clone Mitch and his philosophy and his style of leadership around the country, because I would not feel pessimistic at all about the future of our party. I would be